I stepped out of the shower and made to fetch a towel when someone coughed. Eliza had waited by the door and she held a bunch of clothes with some smart shoes on top. You aren't bad a looker when you're clean. I frowned. Well, I'm glad you approve. I've got a suit for you, said Eliza. Helga's gotten very good at sizing people. Your world was ravaged by the Contravoxai, everyone you have ever known is dying, dead or about to die, your culture as you know it is at an end, you were captured, stripped against your will, imprisoned, eaten alive and now you're infected with an evil thing that can only be kept at bay by drinking the blood of another. I'd say you deserve a drink. Thank you, I said awkwardly and raised the glass to my lips. I took a small sip and I wanted to gag as the taste overwhelmed me. Helga chuckled. Contravoxai and pass through brandy. This is the shit you give to some poor soul about to be enjoyed by a Contravoxai so the Contravoxai gets drunk. Sammy smirked. It's got quite the kick, hasn't it? I nodded then asked. So what happens if this makes me pass out? I'll have Merle carry you to your room, said Helga with a smile. Don't worry, you've got friends here. Who's Merle? I asked, then I braved another sip of the foul liquid. Helga smirked. He's the Contravoxai who's going to be eating this lovely lady tonight. She tickled Sammy's chin. Sammy giggled. Helga put her hands on the table and leaned in to speak to me. He's old, wounded, we think he's a veteran of some kind. Poor guy doesn't have a home or a job so we give him what we can. He survives on the cultured beef we give him every day but he's a Contravoxai. He shouldn't be slumming it on vat-grown meat. So I do what I can for him, when I can bear it. Helga leaned back and sighed. He's helpful, a real nice guy. Hell, Contravoxai are like superheroes compared to us, so having one round who isn't likely to eat the neighborhood is just smart. Well, today Merle's going to be very happy, said Sammy with a smile. I took a gulp of brandy and grimaced at the aftertaste, then I asked. Why? Why do you do it? We're supposed to be escaping and you're just too Mr. Contravoxai, won't you tear off my limbs? What is wrong with you? Helga stared at me, horrified. Sammy just shrugged then said. I like it. It makes me feel good. The pain makes me go tingly and then I'm just so powerless and it feels nice, like I don't need to try anymore because it's beyond my control. Helga said. Sammy, why don't you go get washed for Merle? Sammy nodded. Good idea, look after my boy, won't you? Helga nodded. Sammy left via the hatch to get showered. When she had gone, Helga leaned into me and whispered. You realize it is her and the others being eaten that is paying for your stay here, right? I looked her right eye in her eyes and had another drink. Carla arrived as I shuddered. She was dressed in a backless little black dress and said, Eliza told me you wanted me. Helga smiled when she saw her. The great Carla. You know I'm a big fan, never guessed that I'd get to order you about. Carla smiled and looked away shyly. Well, you know me and Lisa aren't really that big into monogamy. Helga blushed then said. You know Lisa's getting spit roasted? Carla stared at her. Helga clarified. Literally. Big stick through her as she rotates over an open flame. Or, said Carla wistfully. She loves that. I'll have to stop by and have a slice of her later. Helga nodded then said. You know we could set up a second spit if you wanted to join her? Carla frowned. I'm really more of a not being spit roasted kind of girl. I mean I could do if you really wanted me to but. Relax, said Helga gently. It was just a suggestion. Then why do you want me? Asked Carla curiously. There's a Contravoxai coming over called Merle, he's a good guy, said Helga carefully. Sammy's going to be the main course, I thought you might be the drink? Carla nodded. Me and Sammy do go well together, so I'm told. What am I drinking? Cider, said Helga as she handed a pint to her. Take a seat on a stool and keep drinking what I put in front of you. I'll see that you don't have too much and deliver you to him when it's time. Hang on, said Carla with a frown. If I'm to be eaten, why am I wearing clothes? Do you not want this dress? It comes off very easily, said Helga with a smile. Carla smirked. Good to know. Helga and Carla shared a moment as they looked into each other's eyes. Then Amy arrived and Carla took a sip of her cider. Amy was dressed in a black suit. I found myself staring at Amy and took a gulp of brandy as the memory of her naked body flashed before my eyes. Helga moved to address Amy. I see you found your room all right, how are you? Amy sighed. Well, I'm a clone of a clone and I'm on the run with a man I don't know to do something I don't know about, so pretty good. Helga smirked. How do you feel about the Contravoxai? Well, they're good at what I do, said Amy with a shrug. I'm just not sure I like what they do. Where do you want me? Helga asked seriously. Do you feel up to being eaten? Amy said uncertainly. I'd rather not. Why? You can heal, said Helga bluntly. The boys and girls who drink here can't. If you can just intercept any hungry Contravoxai, you can save lives. I'll let you eat and drink whatever you like. Amy smirked. I think I can do that. Good, said Helga cheerfully. Then be on your way. I recommend working the second floor. I mean, Carla's here and Lisa's on the third. What's she doing? Asked Amy curiously. Rotating slowly over a fire as people carve chunks off her, said Helga wryly. Oh, that's good. She's always happy after that, said Amy happily. I'll be on my way then. Amy left as Lucy arrived. Lucy wore her long blonde hair tied back in a ponytail, a short black skirt and a crop top. She looked considerably pissed. Excuse me, landlord, a word in your ear, if you please. Helga nodded. What seems to be the problem? The problem is that I am Lucy Dance, heir to the farsh-nuke, savior of the multiverse and the woman who is commanding every battlefield the united civilizations of the multiverse fight on, and I am dressed like some prick's wet dream, said Lucy angrily. Why? Helga nodded then said. That is because you aren't any of those things now. You are Lucy McSilfblood and you quite literally owe your very existence to letting this boy here drink your blood. Lucy grimaced. I don't need to dress for upskirt shots to have my throat ripped out. No, but you do if you're going to be pumping out eggs so you aren't continually drained of blood, said Helga pointedly. Now you get behind this bar and do as you're told. Lucy stared at Helga, all rage and fury. Then she seemed to crumble and slumped as the badass paragon of virtue gave way to the scared little sylph who just wanted her mistress to comfort her. All right, so long as the others trust you, I'll trust you. Lucy snorted. I don't even have a collar anymore and my owners, are far away from me. I just don't want the girls hurt. They're my family, you know. They're all I've got left. And now I can't even get eaten by a Contravoxai. Helga reached over and stroked her cheek. Well, while you're here, I'll look after you, okay? Lucy nodded, then she vaulted the bar and landed beside Helga. Just treat me like I'm a puppy and we'll be okay. Helga smirked, then stroked Lucy's hair and whistled. Lucy swallowed. Helga whistled again. Lucy closed her eyes for a moment, then her hand reached under her skirt and pulled out an egg. Her hands shaking, she gave it to Helga. Thank you, said Helga, and she placed the egg in a basket behind the bar. Some time passed, during which Lucy laid 5 more eggs, Carla drank 2 pints of cider and I finished my brandy. This may actually equate with my loss of time. Anyway, time came into focus for me when Eliza arrived with Sammy. Sammy wore a strapless red dress, and maybe it was the brandy or the renewed sanity granted by time, but I swear in that moment I fell in love with her. The long blonde hair, those delicate fingers, those beautiful feet, and that smile. That gorgeous excited smile, like this was all a game and she was winning. Eliza twirled Sammy like a dancer to show her off now she'd been cleaned and dressed. Sammy giggled, her laughter music to my ears. Eliza smiled proudly. Think Merle will like her? Helga grinned and grabbed Eliza's arms. My dear, right now, I could eat her. Sammy blushed. Eliza looked Helga in the eyes, obviously basking in the approval. Helga caught herself and placed her arms by her sides. Really, well done. You could, you know, eat me? Asked Sammy shyly. I don't mind, really. Helga laughed. Eliza took up a stool beside me and we watched them. We watched Helga examine Sammy like a prize poodle. Pathetic, isn't it? Said Eliza with a scowl. Absolutely, I said. Then we both sighed. The door opened and you could see the faces of people as they saw what entered and gasped in horror. We turned to look, me and Eliza. It was a shambling thing, a good half of its eyes were popped, bleeding, missing or blind. A number of its tentacles were missing and some of the tentacles it did have dragged along behind it limply. It was even dragging its rump along the ground since its back legs didn't work. Merle! Cried Helga enthusiastically as she clapped her hands. So good to see you. Eliza shuddered as he approached. Merle raised some of his tentacles in a half-hearted wave. Helga. Don't mind. If I come in, out of the cold. Do you? He wheezed a lot. Just one glass of water. Helga shook her head. Oh, said Merle, looking somehow even more downcast than before. Okay. Merle started to slowly turn. You're not having a glass of water because I have got you a banquet, said Helga gleefully. Merle seemed to hunker down for a moment, then he took a long breath. You don't need to keep doing this, Helga. Their lives are worth more than mine. Sammy ran before Merle. Oi, big boy. You think I came all this way for you to turn me down? Merle seemed to stand to attention. Sammy? Sammy grinned. All yours, big boy. Merle stared at her. What? Why? Sammy ran up to Merle and wrapped her arms about him. Because you are worth it. Sammy kissed him and looked up at his eyes. Merle ran a tentacle over her cheek. Really? Really? Said Sammy with utter sincerity as she grabbed the tentacle that was stroking her and held it to her cheek. I am yours. Merle reached out with another tentacle and stroked the other side of her cheek, then down her hair and back until it found her bum where it rested and others gathered. Sammy leaned back into the seat of tentacles and stretched out her arms. Merle's tentacles wrapped themselves around her arms with a gentle strength. Sammy smiled and nodded. Merle's tentacles felt along Sammy's legs and feet before finally he lifted her off the floor. Thank you, said Merle gleefully. Sammy smirked. It's a pleasure. Merle turned with surprising speed to look back at Helga. I don't know how you did it, but thank you. After all these years, a meal I don't have to feel guilty about. Helga said. I'm glad you like her. You're a good man, Merle. You are absolutely worth a million vligeri, but you're right, it is good to not feel guilty for once. Merle started heading towards a booth. Aren't you forgetting something? Said Helga. He gave her a curious look. Your drink, said Helga as she grabbed Carla. Carla stood up and looked to Merle. She winked. Merle stared for a long moment, then asked, have I died and gone to heaven? Carla approached Merle and said, I'll walk behind you and wait for you to take me. You focus on Sammy, I would. Sammy chuckled. Merle extended a tentacle to Carla. Thank you, ever so much. Just enjoy us, said Carla as she took the tentacle in her right hand. That's all the thanks we need. Merle walked off with Carla into an empty cubicle. Helga let out a deep sigh of relief that the whole pub joined in on. Eliza strode over to Helga and took her hands. Is everything all right? Yes, said Helga as she looked at the cubicle Merle had entered. Yes, I think everything is going to be all right for quite a while. She turned her head to look at Eliza and a long moment passed between the pair of them before she said, take the eggs up to my room, then go see how Lisa is doing. Remember, we need her off the spit before too much is taken. Eliza nodded and walked past Helga to fetch the basket of eggs. Helga turned her attention to me. I swallowed. Take the night off, she said. try to enjoy yourself, there's protection in the gents. Then Helga went behind the bar and handed me some coins with strange-looking symbols on them. Thank you, I said. The confusion must have been obvious on my face because Helga said, they can tell you how the money works. Then Helga remembered something as she ducked behind the bar and a moment later presented me with a pint of blood. I sighed and took the pint. I gulped it down with the knowledge that it had to be done. Someone took the seat beside me. She was tall with long brown and a very broad chest. I might have focused on that a little too long. She giggled. It was this delightful little chirrup. The name's Fiora, she said, extending her hand. I shook it. Steve, and sorry about the whole not looking at your face thing. It's been a long day and I am quite drunk. Too drunk to consent? She asked curiously. I stared at her, a sudden rush of blood bringing a renewed bout of sobriety. She was gorgeous but there was something different about her, something I couldn't quite place. She must have seen the cogs whirring in my brain because she said, I'll solve the riddle going through your head. I am a woman but I was not born with the characteristics one might associate with a woman. You're trans? I asked. She thought for a second then said, yes, I am a transgender woman, Steve. The Contravoxai are very good about providing help for those who are transgender or non-binary. I nodded. A very fine woman you are too. I didn't mean anything by my, curiosity. I should think I can consent, if that is your wish. Fiora laughed then said, you're a stranger here aren't you, Steve? Whatever gave you that impression? I asked as I gulped at my blood. Vligeri are raised to worship the Contravoxai, said Fiora carefully. We are literally made to believe that it is a great honor that must never be turned down if a Contravoxai wants to eat you, I said. I didn't see much worship when Merle entered. That is because the flip side of our worship of Contravoxai is the instinctual revulsion and fear of that which can destroy us, said Fiora bluntly. I have lost a lot of good friends to Merle over the years. I looked to the floor awkward. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. Oh, it's okay. They went willingly, as I will, said Fiora dismissively. My point is that you reacted with neither worship or fear, you reacted with confusion and curiosity. I nodded then looked curiously at Fiora. So, why are you talking to me? My best friend thinks you're really hot and exotic, said Fiora awkwardly. Sorry if that comes across as racist. I shook my head. Rather refreshing actually. Where is this friend? Fiora grinned and got up from her stool. Follow me. I nodded then downed my blood before I got up and followed her. It was now that I noticed her dress. It was blue, backless and strapless and I felt like a terrible voyeur looking at it but I had to admit, it was a good look. Stiletto heels clicked on the floor as she walked. We approached the table where a short, slender, dark-skinned woman in a fluffy jacket and jeans sat reading a book. Fiora said, Steve, may I present Roxy, my best friend from back before I transitioned. Roxy looked up at me and blushed. I'm terribly sorry, it must be such an inconvenience. I shook my head. Why would it be an inconvenience to meet two such beautiful ladies? She looked at me like I was a puppy. Or. Fiora said, well, sit down. I smirked and took a seat opposite Roxy as Fiora took a seat beside me. Roxy stared at me and grinned. She sighed. I chuckled. So what do you girls do around here? What's it like being a Vligeri? We read, we play computer games, we have sex, said Roxy casually. I smirked. Yes, we do those things where I come from. Then I caught myself, remembering the sack of Tipton. Came from? Roxy took my hands and squeezed them compassionately. Oh, I am sorry, Steve, if there was anything I could do. I sighed. Something is being done. I live because someone decided I was worth saving. Billions of people on planet Earth, physicists, doctors, teachers, firefighters, diplomats. And she saved me. Roxy looked me in the eyes and I could see she was on the verge of tears for me, for my world and people. Fiora patted me on the back. I forced a laugh. Look at me, bringing the mood down. I'm alive. I'm alive and with two very beautiful women. We should tell him, said Fiora carefully. We can't, said Roxy firmly. He's lost so much already. Fiora said. It's not fair to lie to someone about something like this. I know because I was there, remember? Roxy was silent for a moment, then she said. You are with Sammy and Carlo, aren't you? I nodded. They saved my life. Well, I assume Helga told you that Merle's a regular, right? Said Roxy as her eyes studied my face. I nodded. Helga gives him a couple of vligeri ever so often. I swallowed and looked from Roxy to Fiora, then I put my head in my hands. Helga's been giving us free drinks and food for a few months now, said Fiora awkwardly. And we're nearly 25, added Roxy with a frown. I stared at Roxy, flabbergasted. So leave? Go to a different pub? Run? Hide? Do something? It's not the vligeri way, said Fiora bluntly. Roxy shrugged. We've known Helga and Merle since we were 16. They're good people. We're not about to abandon them. But you'll die, I said pointedly. I've been eaten alive, it's not nice. Roxy frowned and looked sadly at me. Fiora said gently. We've been raised for this, we are destined for this. If not Merle, it'll be somebody else. And Merle's nice, said Roxy pointedly. He helps out with the maintenance of the pub and frequently helps out people who are endangered at night. Thanks to him the streets are safe to walk. Until your number comes up, I said bluntly. Are you really going to go willingly? Roxy shrugged. Helga won't make us, if that's what you're wondering, said Fiora sweetly. We could say no and Helga would ask somebody else. But we won't say no, said Roxy firmly, then she smiled. I'm actually kind of looking forward to it. I stared at her. Fiora nodded in agreement. To feel those strong tentacles embrace me. Gonna be quite the experience. I shook my head in disbelief. Roxy sighed. Anyway, this is why we want you, because we don't have long. I swallowed. This was all too much to take in. Roxy cleared the hair from my face and asked. You do like us, don't you? Yes, I said seriously. She leaned in and kissed me on the lips. Well, I want you to join me and Fiora. Fiora seemed surprised. You want me as well? Roxy chuckled. I always have. Fiora leaned in. Just tell me if you don't want me involved and I won't mind. I put my right arm around Fiora and whispered in her ear. You are a very beautiful woman and I am not going to say no to you. She giggled and put her left arm around me. She kissed my ear, then whispered. So do you want Roxy involved? Because I kind of do. I grinned and kissed Roxy on the lips. Never had a threesome before. Still interested? Roxy grinned and kissed first me then Fiora. I said. I've got a room on the 3rd floor but I need to go get protection. Guest room number 7, okay? I got up from my seat and left Roxy and Fiora snogging each other. When I returned from the gents I found them making out outside my room. I unlocked the door and they led me to the bed. I woke early the next morning and left Fiora and Roxy embracing each other in their sleep as I got a shower. When I got out of the shower I put the kettle on and got dressed. As I made myself a mug of tea Fiora stirred. I smirked and wafted the steam over to them. Fiora opened her eyes and smiled at me. Milk, 2 sugars, if you please. I nodded and made her a mug. Fiora sat up in bed and Roxy stirred. Fiora pulled her close and said, You're beautiful, you know that? Roxy laughed and booped Fiora on the nose, then asked, Any chance of a frappuccino? I said glibly. The options are tea, coffee, decaf coffee, water, white or brown sugar or artificial sweetener, milk or no milk. Roxy stared at me then said, Coffee, black. Now. Fiora gave Roxy a curious look. But you hate black coffee? Roxy said. If I'm going to drink something that tastes like ass then I'm going hardcore. I smirked and presented Fiora and Roxy their beverages then said. Listen, I better go but you two stay as long as you like. You make a cute couple. Fiora laughed. Roxy gave Fiora a curious look. I finished my tea and left them in my bed. It wasn't like I had anything they could steal. Helga was walking down the hall with Lucy at the end of her leash. I stared at them and frowned. Helga said, "She misses her owner, so I have decided to take over the role." Lucy had a stupid grin on her face. I gave her a concerned look, then followed her. Helga knocked on the door of room number 6 and Lisa answered the door, wearing a crop top and a short skirt. Lisa looked really happy. Helga smiled at Lisa. "I hear you had a good night, made a lot of money for me." Lisa nodded. "I love the spit. So peaceful, so warm and so much love." Helga smirked. "Apparently by the time Eliza arrived your skull had been split open and half your brain was taken." Lisa grinned. "Never had my brain eaten before, that's a first." Helga asked hopefully, "Feel like going again tonight?" Lisa threw her arms around Helga in excitement and gratitude. "Yes, absolutely." Then she said, "Maybe we can add a little spice this time? Not full jalfrezi but maybe a tikka masala?" Helga smirked. "I'll have a talk with the chef." Lisa approached me and said, "Promise you'll come see me tonight?" I nodded. Then Sammy exited the room dressed in a low-cut shirt and lounge trousers. "You left me with Lisa last night, you know that?" Helga frowned. "Merle didn't exactly leave us with much to identify you by." Sammy smirked. "I'm not complaining, I got to enjoy Lisa after her happy little turn on the spit." Lisa blushed. "Actually I'm thinking of seeing Merle again tonight," said Sammy wistfully. "That man may have not been handed the best set of cards by fate, but he knows his way around a woman." Sammy shut her eyes and a look of ecstasy came across her face. I smiled at her look of happiness, then she opened her eyes and caught me looking. I could feel my ears burn as my face went red. Sammy took my hand and asked, "What'll you be doing?" "Cleaning glasses," said Helga. "Cleaning glasses," I said. Sammy smirked. Helga knocked on room number 5. Carla answered the door. Lisa glared at her. "You didn't eat me last night." Carla glared at Helga. "I was busy, Merle is not a quick eater," Sammy said. "I found him to be quite spry." Carla scowled. "But he talks so much. He always wants to make sure you're calm and enjoying it. Like, bucko, I'm missing an arm and a leg and you've eaten my liver and kidneys, maybe we can skip the pleasantries and skip to me becoming awful, yeah?" Helga snorted. Sammy said, "It's sweet and heck that's why you eat people, right? The only meal you can have a conversation with." Lisa said sourly, "Well, make sure you join me tonight, yeah?" Carla asked curiously, "You're going on the spit again?" Lisa nodded. "Apparently I'm really popular." Carla looked to Helga. Helga looked completely innocent, so naturally Carla decided to stay behind and speak with her when everyone had gone. Amy exited the room dressed in a suit. "Good nights, everyone,"